So hi everyone, so I am here to do the music genre book tag, and this was created by Cats and Cameras, and I'm going to tag anyone who has not done this yet because I'm not sure who all on my sub list has watched this. So here we go with the tag. So basically these are different music genres and questions to correspond with them. So the first one is pop. Basically an established book group that you would like to join. So I honestly have not read enough books, I think, with friendships, which is maybe kind of sad. You know, you could go with the standard Harry Potter and everything, but I figured a lot of people would use that one. So I said the girls from Beauty Queens, which, you know, I've talked a few times about. It's a book that I really enjoyed, and basically it is about a group of beauty queens who crash on an island, and I felt they all had different, you know, like distinct personalities, and there was a lot of humor, but also a lot of seriousness. It was a good balance, and I think, you know, some of them in real life would maybe be kind of nice to hang out with. The second one is Punk, a book under 200 pages, and you know, I was kind of drawing a blank on this one, but I think Tuck Everlasting was under 200 pages. Yeah. Maybe, The Tiger Rising 2 was also under 200 pages, or maybe just over. I guess I haven't read a whole lot of short books, which I guess is kind of good. Most of the Goosebumps reach at least the 200, so. The next one is pop punk. So take a character and transport them to another book. So going back to my first answer, which was Beauty Queens, I'm going to take Amy from Sailor Moon, aka Sailor Mercury. Or Amy, aka Sailor Mercury from Sailor Moon. Because she is the smart one, and I think she would be able to help the girls, you know, get home. And also she's technically a superhero, so. Anyways, so the next one is Grime. So a book with population hierarchy. So royalty, rich, poor. And I always say it is not a tag unless my favorite book comes up. So the nation of Panem is basically made up of what they call a capital, who is the ruling government, and basically it is your government officials, and you're extremely wealthy. And then there are the districts, who provide such things as coal and masonry and etc. Now, our main character lives in District 12, which is one of the poorest districts. Poor enough that they hunt squirrels and eat them for dinner if they are starving enough. Whereas you have your capital, where people are so rich that they dye their skin and surgically insert jewels into themselves. There are different levels within the districts, even though the richer districts are not exempt from the games, because they do things such as textiles, and, you know, they make the fancy clothes for the capital officials and whatnot, that they kind of get special treatment, and they're much richer than the poorer districts, obviously, if they're richer. but they have more money because they are more favored, basically. And they kind of see these games as more of an honor, whereas the poorer people who can't afford to train their children, it's basically a death sentence. So, Pan Am itself comes from, if I can pronounce this right, a Latin word, which is Panem et circenses, which is bread in circuses. And then there's like the whole Roman theme throughout it. So a book definitely based on hierarchy and classism, basically, is that. R&B, a couple non-compatible. So I'm lucky enough to not have read a book where I thought that the main character or any characters did not get with the person that they should be with. Either that or I just did not give a rat's ass about it. The next one is Rap, a book you flew through. So I picked the very first book that I actually read on my Nook, which is called Unwind, and Unwind is another young adult dystopian which focuses on what kind of happens after there is a war over basically abortion, and this kind of twisted solution that they come up with. And that book just had me glued to it. It is the second dystopian I read after The Giver. Metal, basically this one is a misunderstood character, and for that one I picked Finnick. It was one of my favorites out of Catching Fire and Mockingjay, and there was just so much more to his character than his looks, and a lot being the arrogance and everything, and one of my favorites. Melodic Hardcore, a book with beautiful prose. So there's a few I can go with this one. I think my favorite has great prose. Some people don't. Some people think it's a little too YA. I don't know. I think so. I think that in a lot of instances that The Fault in Our Stars was very beautiful. But for this one, I mean, I guess you can add those two. I picked We Were Liars. It was not my absolute favorite. I loved the writing style. It had a beautiful flow to it. But it's just some stuff about the story kind of bothered me, but I love the writing style. The next one is EDM, which is colorful covers. So basically at the end of this video I'll just post a picture of colorful covers. The next one is Country, a book dealing with religion or about religion. So other than My Idiot's Guide to Wicca and basic religious text, I would have to go with Because of Winn-Dixie. Basically her father is a pastor, and if you haven't read that book, it's cute and it's sad, and you need to read it. The next one is K-pop or J-pop, K-pop or J-rock. So basically a manga, which is a Japanese graphic novel, or a book originally in another language. And this is another book that I brought up once or twice, not as much just because I finished it not all that long ago, and that's The Elegance of a Hedgehog. So this was originally written in French. I listened to it on audio, in English obviously, and it's a lot of dialect. There's not really a plot to it, but I really enjoyed the characters. The next one is Reggae. and that is a book celebrating a different culture or like marginalized people. So there was a book that we had read in class like years ago when I was in ninth grade, and I believe it was called Join In. It's like a short story collection based around like people of different cultures and everything. I really enjoyed that, and one day I want to get it back. I'm pretty sure that's what it was called. It took me the longest time to find it, and just for some reason I just never got around to buying it, but that is definitely on my to-buy list because I already know that I loved it. I'm kind of really sad that I lost it. The next one is Death Metal, a book with a taboo or disturbing content. And this one I'm going to go with another book that I've mentioned many times, which is The Lovely Bones. And this one also has very, very beautiful prose, but it's very dark and very heartbreaking at the same time, but I feel like it's worth getting past that kind of stuff to read this, because it's a good, it's set, the story is set years ago, so I don't know if you would call it a contemporary, but it has that contemporary mixture. It has that good mixture of contemporary and sort of fantasy. I don't know if you would call it magic or realism. I don't think so, because there's no magic in it. Basically, it is about the story is told from the perspective of a young girl who is basically lured into this like trap and murdered by her neighbor. And it talks about her like navigating her way through the afterlife and the breakdown of her family and such. So yeah, it's very out there but very good. Indie, 2 books with a similar plot. So I'm going with the dreaded Twilight. I read Twilight. I read not New Moon or anything else. I just read Twilight. And Jessica's Guide to Dating on the Dark Side. So both have vampires and teenagers and somewhat of romance. Jessica's Guide to Dating on the Dark Side is so much better. So much better. That is an entertaining book. That has a way better female protagonist. Twilight has nothing on that book. New Metal, more than one element in storytelling. I guess I would have to go with a lot of manga, like Sailor Moon or Chibi Vampire. There was a graphic novel called Anya's Ghost, which was pretty good. So yeah, basically any graphic novel. Acoustic, strip back a book plot to one sentence. Emotionally abused boy's life changes when a giant tells him he's a wizard. Emo, a book that made you cry. Most of my favorites do, really, honestly. Like my 3 favorite books have people dying either at the beginning or throughout the books, but I picked A Monster Calls for this one. This was another book that I read on my Nook. Some parts could have been better. Sometimes I think it could have been a little bit longer. But basically this is about a boy named Connor who lives in England. His father is basically in America with a new life and a new wife, and his mother has cancer. And then a tree monster comes to visit him. The next one is Unsigned, an indie release. So I'm going to do a little shameless self-promotion and say my book, which is called Another World Called Ours. You can find it on Amazon. Dubstep, genre bending. So I went with The Great and Terrible Beauty. Basically, it is fantasy and historical fiction. And the last one is Can't Be Pigeonholed. So switch genres, explain. I don't know if I would want to switch genres, but I'm wondering some of these John Green books, such as The Fault in Our Stars, how people would feel if maybe they were written about college-age people instead of being targeted towards young adult. So yeah, that's the tag. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.